July 6th, 2026. Xbox CEO Asha Sharma sent an internal email that shook the gaming world. She called it the most significant restructure in Xbox history. 3,200 jobs cut, 1,600 of them let go the same day, and 4 major studios leaving Microsoft entirely. But the real story isn't just the numbers, it's why this was necessary, and the facts are brutal. Xbox is slashing its workforce by roughly 3,200 roles across fiscal year 2027. The first 1,600 happened this week, and another 1,600 will be eliminated throughout the year. 4 studios are being allowed to go independent or be sold. Compulsion Games and Double Fine Productions are becoming independent. Ninja Theory and Undead Labs are moving to new ownership with funding secured for Senua's Saga and State of Decay 3. Arcane Leon is in talks for strategic operations. No major announced games have been canceled, but investment is being heavily redirected toward higher priority projects, and Mojang and King will now report directly to Asha Sharma. This wasn't a random cost-cutting exercise. Sharma was brutally honest in her email. Our business today is not healthy. Fact number 1. Terrible profit margins. Xbox is operating at margins 3 to 10 times lower than comparable platform and publishing businesses. Some reports put the division's profit margin at just around 3%. Folks, 3% isn't sustainable for any for-profit business. There isn't a single gaming studio out there that could operate with those margins. Fact number 2. Losing money on studios. In a typical year, Xbox was losing 64 cents for every single dollar invested in its studios and content. That's just not sustainable. Again, no independent studio or business can operate when it's losing 64% of every dollar spent. It's insane to me that Microsoft let this go on for as long as it has. I'm thankful that they're finally taking steps to fix it. Fact number 3. They entered this generation at a disadvantage. Microsoft entered the current console generation, Series X and S, with a smaller install base and a higher cost structure than Sony and Nintendo. Yes, Xbox has always been the underdog when it comes to the console wars. However, they should be able to compete given the roster of talent that they've had for years, and to be honest, it just didn't happen. Fact number 4. The big bets didn't pay off fast enough. Xbox went all in on Game Pass, putting first-party games on rival platforms, and massively expanding its studio portfolio since 2018. While these moves created meaningful value, they didn't grow at the pace that was expected. As a result, the core business weakened. Again, loads of talent, but little to no return. Fact number 5. Bloated and inefficient. Platform teams grew 40% larger since the start of this generation, even while the player base and playtime declined. In some areas, work was passing through as many as 14 layers of management. The organization became fragmented as headcount ballooned. Remind you of anyone? That's right, Bethesda is a prime example. They used to put out games with far less staff in reasonable time frames, and then the staff grew, which you'd think would speed up the process, but it didn't. Instead, the time for production only went up exponentially as the staff grew. Fact number 6. Worst hardware crisis in decades. The entire industry is facing its most severe hardware slowdown in history. Console sales across the board have been brutal. Xbox Series X and S lifetime sales were 33 to 40 million units, while PlayStation 5 sold 93 plus million units. Xbox has been fighting an uphill battle on hardware from day one of this generation. The numbers don't lie. This doesn't have anything to do with the hardware capabilities. It's simply the fact that Sony has more, better games. Since 2018, Xbox aggressively bought and built studios while the number of games being made industry-wide exploded. Xbox has been competing not just with Sony and Nintendo, but with the flood of indie and mid-tier titles. Sharma admitted, "It's neither possible nor desirable to own every great independent studio." Despite all the great studios and valuable IP, Xbox just wasn't able to turn that into sustainable revenue. When they bought ZeniMax and Bethesda, the idea was that because of the overwhelming IP those studios found success with, would also help Xbox find the same success. The problem was that Phil Spencer gave them free rein to do whatever they wanted and just kept throwing money at them because of the idea that if they were left alone, they would produce another masterpiece like Skyrim. What happened? Bethesda produced a flop with Starfield. Arcane produced a flop with Redfall. ZeniMax was in development hell with a new MMO that ultimately was forced to be canceled because it was just a money sink with no end in sight. There are other projects that were shut down because they were unannounced and also in development hell throughout all the various Bethesda studios. Microsoft finally realized that they had bought, what in their eyes must have been, a lemon. While Xbox was looking for profits, Bethesda was looking at metrics that made them feel good and feel like the games were successful even though they weren't. Todd Howard kept telling everyone that they could play the live service games like ESO and Fallout 76 to get their fix for those franchises while ignoring the real issue. That issue is that people want to play the single-player games. Todd doesn't understand that if those players really wanted to play the MMOs, they would have a long time ago. Xbox is resetting three things: the content portfolio, focusing resources, selling or allowing studios that don't fit the new model to go independent, and supporting independent studios with tools instead of owning them. The platform will be cutting management layers down to a maximum of 5, ideally 3. It's a flatter structure with clear, directly responsible individuals and a 50% reduction in vendor spending. This means that there will be less outsourcing and more accountability within the studio management to meet goals. And if management is being held accountable, you can bet that each and every developer will be too, and that is something that needed to happen. The operations. Asha introduced a new Chief Operating Officer, Helen Chang, with full P&L responsibility across hardware, content, platform, and services. This is a much tighter alignment as finances will now be distributed more appropriately. Investment this year stays at record levels, but with a much greater focus and discipline. This also means that pet projects are no longer going to be a thing. Hopefully, it will eliminate the trash games from being made. Sharma's stated ambition is to make Xbox one of the few companies that entertains more than 1 billion people every single day. She says they will return to growth in 2027. With the changes taking place right now, that is very much possible. Look, this restructure is painful. Thousands of talented people are losing their jobs. Studios that some fans love are leaving Microsoft. But the data shows why it is necessary. Losing money on content investments, bloated structure, losing the hardware battle badly, the bets on Game Pass and multi-platform just not delivering fast enough returns. Xbox is trying to stop the bleeding and build something leaner and more focused. Whether it works remains to be seen, but ignoring these numbers any longer wasn't an option. In fact, as I was working on this video, it was announced that Obsidian has been forced to cancel its plans to work on Avowed 2. Thank God. Instead, it will now begin production on a new Fallout game with Josh Sawyer leading the development of it. This is the one thing that Fallout fans have been screaming to the heavens to make happen, and now, because of Asha Sharma, it's happening. In one move, she just became my favorite Xbox executive. She has come into this with the mindset of things are broken and it's time to fix it. Don't get me wrong, I thought the world of Phil Spencer, but man, he let the inmates run the asylum. Asha is more like a dictator who has come into the role with an iron fist. It's her way or the highway, and right now, she's making gaming great again. You don't have to like how she's doing it. Yes, people are going to have to be let go. It's never nice to see it happen, but the truth is, if they were half as good as people think, the games they helped produce would have been better and actually made money. There are a lot of people on social media who are just coping and making excuses, but the facts are revealed in the numbers that matter, and that is profit and loss. Based on the cost to produce just the games I listed earlier, they would have had to have sold millions of copies, and none of them did. ESO and Fallout 76 survive entirely on the whales who spend a ton in their various shops that both games have. The worst part is that neither game has produced any substantial story-related content in years. Instead, they are both just putting out repeatable content, which gets boring very quickly. Both have become very grindy, and that too gets old quick. As for the layoffs connected to the various Bethesda studios, Bethesda proper did get hit with a smaller portion of cuts than the rest of the satellite studios. ZeniMax Online Studios got hit the hardest by basically losing half of its staff. Whether or not anyone in charge at Microsoft will admit it, I think that is primarily because the studio is unionized, and we all know how Microsoft feels about that. With that said, the remaining crew should rethink their plans to protest the layoffs, because the truth is, it really isn't going to help. If they truly value their jobs, they will not follow through with the protest. It's very clear that Microsoft and Xbox CEO Asha Sharma won't lose any sleep over shutting down a studio, and that could end up being the result if they push their luck. I also don't think that it would mean the end for ESO because, as we've already seen, Asha would likely just pass the game off to another developer. id Software also lost about half of their staff as well, putting them back to their 2016 headcount. The other studios lost less, but were still hit hard enough for it to be noticeable. I've seen rumors about those being laid off being replaced by H-1Bs. This isn't true. Microsoft does employ a lot of H-1Bs, and many of them were included in the layoffs. That said, the number of H-1B applications doesn't mean that they're new. Most of them are simply renewals because the time ran out on the original application. Even more to the point, 99% of the H-1Bs are not working under the Xbox brand. They are mostly working in AI, cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity, and engineering. So those rumors are just not true. At any rate, this is just the beginning, and we will see more cuts coming. We may still see studio closures, and most certainly will see games being made by other studios, as evidenced by Obsidian getting to make a new Fallout game. I will be honest here too. I am very surprised by the amount of people online complaining about a new Fallout being made by Obsidian. I get that the studio is very different now, and that they have put up some less than favorable games recently. However, the studio does still have the original creators of Fallout working for them. Both Josh Sawyer and Tim Kaine work there, and I'm certain that they can put out an excellent Fallout game. The good news is that this time they won't be constrained by Bethesda to meet certain metrics or get blindsided by any BS from the studio. The reason? Because Bethesda no longer has any say in it. This decision was made by Asha Sharma, and she is the boss of all the studios under the Xbox umbrella. What she says goes. Like it or not, this time Todd has no power. I know many of you are upset about the layoffs. I get it, it's not ideal. However, at some point we have to look at reality. The truth is, most of the jobs that were cut were entirely unnecessary. We are talking about middle management for the most part. Guess what they actually do? If you said not much, you'd be right. They spend most of the workday in meetings, most of which are a waste of time. I'm going to be brutally honest here. These types of layoffs happen all the time. Where I work, the company just recently laid off 90% of the management staff. Did it negatively impact the day-to-day operations? Yeah, for like a week, and then everything worked itself out and life went on as normal. There is no reason that these layoffs should affect any production timeline in a negative way. In fact, it should decrease the time to ship a title because there are less roadblocks to the production of these games. Put another way, the increased ownership of responsibilities should light a fire under the devs' asses so they can prove that their job is important enough to keep. If you are worried about your job security, the best way to improve the chances of keeping it is to put in effort, take ownership and responsibility for the work you produce, and focus on producing enough to make the game sell well. Stop putting in BS that nobody wants or asked for, and focus on what sells. I could go on a much longer rant about this, but I think the point has been made. Go out, make great games that you know will sell, and take pride in your work. It's not that hard. Nobody cares about your political beliefs, your personal beliefs, or you in general. All we care about is being able to play a good game to escape the real world and get immersed in a world that the game gives us. If the story is good and the gameplay is good, then it will sell. What do you think? Is this the right move for Xbox's future, or is it too little too late? Are you excited about Obsidian finally getting to make another Fallout game? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I'm just glad you stopped by, and I'll see you in the next one.